All right, so today we're going to be going through how we optimized an SEO content pipeline workflow by eliminating manual handoffs using Airtable and automation. So what we've got here is the current state, just to give you some context. You've got two parts of the team. You've got an SEO manager who's responsible for organizing the keywords, signing out articles to be written, making sure those get approved and uploaded, and then the content writers who are supposed to be actually creating that content and writing the content. So the SEO manager starts off by creating the keywords or adding the keywords to a Google Sheet, writing a brief, and assigning the writers. That manager then has to manually email or ping the writer to let them know that they've been assigned work. The content writer then has to review the brief, write the article, update the article status in the sheet, and then email or ping the manager back to let them know that that work has been completed and it's ready for review. The manager then reviews the article, determines whether it needs revisions. If it does need revisions, then they will manually email that writer back to let them know to make whatever revisions are necessary based on their feedback. If it doesn't need revisions, they can approve the article, and then either they or the development team will click and push that article in Git so it gets published, and then they need to go back and log that published URL in Sheets. So with this, every single handoff is manual. The status lives in 3 different tools, and we want to streamline this with Airtable. So the future state that we defined was one where we have the SEO manager and content writer, but we're adding in Airtable to act as a tool that is going to automate certain parts of this process. The manager is still going to create the keyword brief and assign the writer, but that's going to be done in Airtable. Then the Airtable automations are going to notify the writer that the brief is ready to review and the article is ready to start. The writer is then going to view the brief, write the article, make sure the article is updated with the right status, which is then going to notify the manager automatically in the background. This can be either email or Slack or Teams. Then the manager is going to review the article, determine whether it needs revisions or not. If it does, they're going to check a box, and then Airtable is going to automatically notify the writer that there's work that needs to be done and include that feedback in the notification. If it does not need revisions, then the manager can approve the article, make sure it gets pushed in Git and published, and the published URL will be logged back in Airtable. So the automated handoffs are going to replace the manual chasing. Overall, there's going to be less steps that are going to need to be done. And most importantly, we're going to create one source of truth where this whole process lives. All right. So what we'll usually do is create a build plan that looks something like this, where we're writing out user stories, data structure, etc. And this is just to make sure that before we build, we actually have a defined process and a defined outcome we're trying to achieve written down and solidified in writing. So once we've established that build plan, we're going to go ahead and build it out. And so what we've got here are the 3 core tables that make this process work. We have our keywords, we have our articles, and we have our people. So we create keywords, articles are linked to our keywords, and then people are assigned to various articles. We have these automations in here that are going to ensure that we are notifying people as the work flows through the pipeline. So for example, when an article is assigned, we're going to be emailing the writer that the article needs to be worked on. When the article is ready for review, we've got an automation in here that notifies the manager of that information. And then when that article needs revisions, we're going to notify the writer one more time that there's feedback and that we need to address certain things to make sure the work continues to flow. So just to give you a quick preview how simple it is and how seamless it is, that's an example of what potential email could look like. You can make it more fancy or less fancy or add more information as needed. But as we go into the interfaces, we can see what that workflow is actually going to look like. So there's going to be 2 main interfaces. This is what we built out in this case, where we have an SEO manager interface and a content writer interface. So the interfaces essentially represent different roles or personas or perspectives of the system that we need to account for in order to make sure everybody can do their work. So the pipeline view for the SEO manager is the most important thing, where they're going to want to be able to see all the work in its various statuses in one place for the management of the whole process, right? So we can see every single piece of content that we have in the system. And we can also filter by certain keywords. So if we want to see just the SEO strategy keywords, we can see that. Or perhaps we want to see, articles who are assigned to me. That's as simple as clicking a button. And we can even add combinations of these where we want to see perhaps the combination of content that's assigned to me and then also has the keywords for technical SEO. So as we expand each one of these articles, we can see there's more details where we can add a deadline, an assigned writer, we can add keywords, we can manage the status, or we can just drag these back and forth through these pipelines. So for example, once this is ready for review, I can just drag it into the ready for review column. You can also include the brief details, feedback, as well as juror tickets linked here and the published URL. So this is all meant to create one consolidated place where we can see everything about an article and distribute the information as needed. If we need to comment and leave a message for somebody, for example, as the manager, I can make a comment to my writer and leave that here, and I can even add attachments and mention them by name, and they'll get a Airtable notification, which shows up down here, and then we'll also be able to send them an email automatically as well. So that's the pipeline page. We also have the ability to add keywords in here. So we can see all of our keywords here grouped by priority. And I didn't show you this in the other view, but we have forms where it's gonna essentially streamline and organize the process for adding any data into the system. So adding a keyword, we always have to add the keyword itself, the search volume, the priority. We can link it to other articles in our system. And for the pipeline of articles, we can always add an article with the title, a status, which keyword that relates to, the writer, the brief, deadline, etc. So the goal is to make sure we have a fully defined record as soon as it comes into the system and that anybody can see and, access those details as they need to. From a content writer's perspective, what we will see here is a filtered down view of all of those articles so that my view is focused. I don't have to click any buttons to be able to see what I'm assigned to and what I'm responsible for. That's going to be done by the system. And all I have to do is, open my particular article in my work, make sure it has the right status, make sure all the details are logged accurately. And once I'm done with the work, I click, approved or in revision or ready for review, whatever status we're at as a manager or as a content writer. And the process continues to flow, making sure those handoffs are done seamlessly. Okay. So this is, an example of an SEO content pipeline workflow. Airtable is flexible enough to sort of extend to, a million different use cases, but I wanted to show you what one looks like from beginning to end, from the workflow to the build plan to the actual system itself. So if you want access to this exact system, this Airtable system for your own personal use, as well as the build plan that I've been showing you and the workflow diagram, you can access all of that in the link in the description through my Airtable community. So the Airtable community is called the Builders Guild. We're going to be teaching you as a serious operator how to master the craft of building systems. We're going to be giving you Airtable and Claude templates, step-by-step build plans, business process mapping resources, tutorials, and most importantly, it's a community of serious builders growing together. So we've got resources dropping every single week. It's time to join the party. Come on in. All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching and hope you have enjoyed.